Hello everyone, this is Alex, and today we are doing an orchestral trill. What is this? It's also something I call an orchestral blur. So it's something I use all the time, and it's a great orchestration technique. And this idea comes from the same concept that I present in a recent video where I talk about doing an orchestral arpeggio. And I want to come back about some of the things I say in this video that when I talk about Maurice Ravel's Bolero. And I said this piece is completely boring. Now, some people have been mad at me because I said that Maurice Ravel's Bolero was a bad piece. And I'm sorry I said that. I really love Ravel's music. I love every of his music except one, the Bolero. I love the Bolero, but not for the music. I love the Bolero for the orchestration. And Maurice Ravel himself said that it was sad that his most famous work was the only piece of music without music. That's what Ravel said. He doesn't like his piece. He saw it first as an exercise. What's interesting in this piece, it's the orchestration. And since the modern period, the beginning of the 20th century, composers have started using this idea of orchestrating out of thin air, like with almost nothing. So this is something I show you today in this video about orchestral trill or orchestral blur, where I just start from a simple chord. Well, it's not such a simple chord, but it's just one chord, okay? I do one chord, and then with just orchestration, we create beautiful music. So let's dive in. But before we dive in, just make sure that you're subscribed. And if you want to access this course that I present in these videos, you can have access to them easily by joining as a member of this channel. Also, if you'd like me to feature your music on my channel, I will be doing once a month a video commenting my viewers' music. So make sure you check the link down below for more information. But now let's dive in. All right, so here is the piano reduction for this exercise. So for this, at first, just before doing this, this kind of rhythm going from the lowest register to the highest register, I just chose a simple chord here. Well, it's not quite simple, but if you can see a little bit what it is, actually, we have a root of G and with the D here. So it's like a G major chord or a G minor chord. But the thing is that I wanted to keep it ambiguous, so there's no B flat in here. We just have the 7th, the 9th, the 11th. So that's the 11th. And then again, same thing. We got 7th, 9th, and 11th. We got a new D here, and then again a G, and finally a A. So it's kind of G 11th chord with no third, so you don't know if it's a major or minor chord. So I like to use a chord like this that's a little bit more complex for this kind of exercise, for this kind of color. And you'll hear why in a second. So in this exercise of orchestral trill, I like to present the different registers at different times. So not all the chord right at the beginning. So this is why it's interesting. So you just get the roots here, and then you go up the chord, and then you feel like you have F major chord, and then you go onto this chord here, and you feel like you're a suspended chord or something again here, and same thing for the ending. So it creates this very open kind of chord that I like very much, and you go through all of these color while you present the music. So for this orchestral trill, once you choose your chord, then you can do it with just a minor chord, just a major chord. I like to start by inputting a rhythm, so a certain rhythm where you present the different registers of this chord. So let's just listen to the piano reduction for this first. So the rhythm is a little bit unpredictable. It's like syncopation, and you don't quite know where to land on this. It's all for the effect of you're doing something with almost nothing, and it needs to feel suspended in a way because you're on the same chord. And that's what this orchestral trill thing is so cool. You don't need to change chord. You don't need to add a melody. You don't need to do anything. You just need to choose the chord and then orchestrate with a certain rhythm. So yes, there's something you need to compose, the rhythm, but otherwise, notes. Composing out of thin air. So once you have this rhythm, I like to take it and simply bring it to my harp. So my harp here is doing exactly that, exactly the same thing. And I like the harp because it just punctuates mouthpiece entrance, but still very delicately. And all of this, there's no dynamic marked, but it's all to be played piano. So this is the first version: strings, woodwinds, and harp, tremolo, and basic doublings. So if we just focus on the strings first, the double bass is just doing the first note here. So you assume that when you play this on the piano, the note will be a little bit longer, and you want to extend it like so with the double bass. You can even do it like a little bit more, maybe long note like this. But after that, you present these different registers one at a time. You got the D and the F that's coming a little bit early here. And this is very important here. This idea of orchestral trill really comes from the strings kind of blurring the sound of the chord. So you need to add in a lot of these tremolos. It's like a big trill. It's a trill between notes that are bigger than a second minor or major apart. And to follow this kind of rhythm and presenting the notes one at a time of the chord with these different instruments. So you see I'm using some of the notes here, mostly the higher notes from this, and they're playing tremolo here, all following the same rhythm. There's some things that are added, like this C note is not in here, but it was there before. It's still part of the chord, so it's fine if I present it. And it's kind of this gesture going upwards, like this original part here. But see that I have trill at the end, so instead of presenting G and A both with like maybe a DVZ here like this, I'm using the trill to do this effect, but it's even more like this blurry effect that you get instead of this very clear G and A sound that you might want. But in my case here, I like the blurriness, and it really gives this interesting effect of this orchestral trill. So holding some notes a little bit longer, like this C is starting here and it's holding up to here. Again, it's to blur this kind of effect, and also to assume that this is played on the harp, but this was originally like thought for the piano. So of course, there's going to be like some pedal effect that you want to reproduce within the string orchestra. So that's what I'm doing here. But yeah, nothing crazy, crazy hard here. Just big trills, like the alto, the viola are just doing these trills going up and up and up, and holding the last trill here like this. So I like to start with my strings for this. Let's just listen for the strings for this first version. And I said the strings, including the harp. So you were hearing the harp as well. The harp is a string instrument, right? Okay, so if we keep going up, who else is playing for this first version? I use my my woodwinds, basic woodwinds, flute, clarinets. Flutes are playing by two. Just because it's a low register it's a like medium to low register for the flute. And I wanted this higher line to stand out. But see, right at the end, they're separating just for the last note. So they're playing the G together, and they're separating for the A. So because here is a high enough register, I think, for the flute to stand out and to have the equivalent of the clarinet through this whole part here. But yeah, just at the beginning here, keep your flutes together for this. Even if it's piano, it just gives a little bit more strength to these notes that can feel low. And I really wanted them to feel unequal to these two clarinets notes down here, just to reproduce this part here. But otherwise, the bassoon here, you see, is doing something a little bit different than the double bass, and it's actually closer to what the harp is doing here. It's just you just have the D. Actually, you could have put this here, but these notes are already in the bass clarinet here. The F is already there, and we have the A coming here with the clarinets. And then this C is doubling the cello. See that the cello is doing this tremolo line, and the bassoon is just holding the note. You don't want to have a tremolo or a flutter tongue with the bassoon here. It's going to sound too horrible. But after that, the bass clarinet is going up, following these clarinets. Don't hesitate to use a bass clarinet like in its upper register like this. It's like a third clarinet, and it's a very flexible instrument you can play in whatever register, whatever dynamic. So use it. So let's listen to this full first version. It's already pretty good, and we got this effect of orchestral tremolo. But here what makes it so orchestral is that you have these big sections, these big string sections that really present one at a time, comes in one at a time. So you got this whole like space dimension that was not there in this original just piano reduction, which makes it so much more musical. And to add like a little bit of individuality, like this one is doing a tremolo while this one is doing this this wide trill, then trill here, and then trill between like bigger notes, and then exchanging these kinds of effects. But also the fact that we have the woodwinds doubling some of these notes. See that the flute is really doubling the first violin here, makes this part a little bit bigger and a little bit more supported, and contribute to this blurriness of the sound. And we're like kind of discovering the chord as the music progress slowly, and the instruments and presenting their different registers. So this is my simple version first. I always present the simplest version, and it's already a good version. But let's go and see another version. There's a little bit more stuff here. So this one was really, the second one was really following this line very carefully for my strings first. So let's see the strings now. It starts like so. It starts the same, but see here, I added some pizzicatos. So remember when I said I like the harp for this kind of orchestral trill effect because it punctuates the original rhythm I had planned. So it's really something that's interesting to do as well with the violin. So I just did it once here. Actually, I have also the double bass punctuating the lower note, but I think my next version is also doing even more of that. So, but another thing that's interesting is I add in the IA for the last note. So this was not there in the original, and it's just to add some light right at the end. And in putting this higher note made me think, let's bring in the piccolo. And the piccolo here is doing this like quick scale to get to the IA. This is usually very efficient, colorful thing. And the piccolo is one instrument, but it beats everything. I mean, it's alone in its higher register, so it really stands out. And it gives a signal for this higher note to come in. And you'll see when you hear the playback how it's effective. Otherwise, the strings are pretty much the same. It's just this little thing, this higher note that I wanted to add in. Also, getting into these higher notes as well with the harp really gives this different feeling, and this kind of feeling like you're above the clouds suddenly, really in this like the stratosphere or something. And now about the woodwinds, I added the English horn here to double this C. If you remember, this is from the cello, and I think it was originally with the bassoon doing this, holding this note, but I think that cor anglais, English horn, is much better for this register. And also the fact that I added in the oboe here for the ending. I wanted to already give this color of the oboe and English horn section. But the flute is the same here. I think I inputted a trill. Actually, I decided to bring a trill here for the flutes instead of separating the lines like this. This is the flute from the previous version. I input a trill, and this is mainly because I have my piccolo already doing this I note. So I wanted to again add some blurriness. So these are my two flutes doing this. So a little bit more interesting, in my opinion. But otherwise, the clarinets are the same. The bass clarinet is the same. But now the brasses. The brasses are here. They decided to come. We have horns one trumpet and two trombones. So the two trombones are doing these low notes. These are basically notes from the double bass, holding this low note, and then the first trombone ascending to this note here, but holding it and just then disappearing because the register is a little bit too high for the trombone here to make it soft. The trumpet is doing one of the highest line. It's not actually the highest one, but almost. It's okay to use brasses for soft effects. They can play soft really well. And the fact that I'm using the trombones here in this register, which is very comfortable with them, they can play it soft. It's just be careful not to use brasses in their extreme registers where they stand out a lot more. They have to play louder. Their instruments just sound way more tense and intense in your orchestration. But now here it can really blend well within this orchestral trill effect. But they're mostly doing doublings of these. I chose the line carefully, just so that it fits their better register. And yeah, this is the new version. So you'll see it's not so different just because the strings are exactly the same. I just added in a couple of woodwinds. But now let's listen to it, especially for the horns here. So this is my second version. So really this doubling of this higher note at the end, right at the end, is really what makes it suddenly an orchestration with a real personality. It's a small touch that just has so much impact in this and complements really well this whole effect from going down to the lower register to the upper register. And see that the brasses are not so obvious. They just add some support to all of this and help with doubling these notes. The strings are still doing their blurry effect, tremolo and trills. But yes, with these entrances from the brasses one at a time, and then disappearing, and then leaving only the trumpet at the end. It's really, really subtle. But now you know me, I have even another version, third version. This is it, and it's a little bit more complex here. Even more punctuation and movement in the strings, extra woodwinds and percussions suddenly. And I changed the harp. So I like to change the harp when I'm doing this to hide the original idea that was there at first. And this whole point is just to make it less obvious, right? Make the rhythm less obvious, less clang, 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 and predictable. But still the notes are here. It's just a little bit more arpeggiated here. I kept this triplet here because it's a little bit more characteristic. But after that, I just used this glissandos, two glissandos here, and left the rest of the orchestra, have this gradual opening of the chord. And the arpeggios, like at first, and the glissandos, it's really a great effect for this orchestral trill effect and blurriness. But now let's see the string. So the double bass is the same. The cello is the same as well, I believe. It may be a little bit different. Yeah, I used some more precise rhythm for this here. I thought that the trill might be a little bit too much. I think having this very clear rhythm within this, it's already very blurry, and also added in a timpani at the beginning. The bass clarinet is still here. I thought we needed a little bit more precision to begin with the cellos here. But after that, they're going at this high C, doing their tremolo thing. That was already there. But then what's changing a lot more is my upper string. So you remember I had this pizzicato here. So I had added a bunch of pizzicatos, one here, and then one here, and they're all punctuating these entrances. So notice that I have a pizzicato, but it's always paired with a tremolo effect. So pizzicato and tremolo down here, then pizzicato again. You got this tremolo up here, and then this tremolo up here. Then pizzicato here, you got this tremolo up here. Also notice I have this little group of notes, that appoggiaturas, that comes right before. This is very effective for strings to kind of blur the sound again. The entrance is a little bit more rough. This is an effect I like a lot, especially it's effective for soft passages, but for loud passages, if you want your string to sound bigger, 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 and to sound louder, well, just do a lot of these group of notes before your main note, and you will have even more sound from your instruments. So let's listen to our string orchestra and our harp. It's already sounding great. You can really hear this a little bit more dynamic and things happening. A lot more different timbre as well, with the pizzicatos and the tremolos, exchanging these effects, sharing these effects from left to right, from the first violin to second violin, and then the viola as well. We tend to just put everything on the first violin and then give the not so great things to the second and violins and the violas. But it's not a good idea. All sections are part of this whole environment, and by sharing these effects between the different sections, the sound's traveling a lot more. So this is my suggestions for you. But yeah, that's it for my strings here. And then we go up here. I think my brasses are exactly the same. Yes, basically exactly the same. And I added in a few things here. My flute was beginning to be too low. So in the previous section, it was pretty much. I don't think we can really hear this flute here, because we even have the brasses. We got the trumpet. It's really close. So at first we don't hear it, but once we hit the IG, comes out nicely. So now that I've added even more stuff, like with the percussions, I decided to go to the higher octave here. So to do this sextuplet, just going through the notes on the chord, then going to this high note, and then finishing with this trill from before. Now the oboe is playing right at the beginning with the English horn, so they're doing all of the notes. The English horn is even doing a little group of notes. It's anticipating this higher gesture from the piccolo. So sometimes when you have one simple idea like this, try to think, well, how can I use this a little bit earlier in my orchestration? And this is actually what I did here. And see that I'm pairing this with the harp glissando. So ring, and then ring. They're doing this together, and they're contributing to this together. So it's a great orchestral trick to pair your quick scales like this from your winds or other instrument with glissandos from the harp. And then again, the bassoon is basically the same. The bass clarinet also the same. The clarinets now are a little bit different. They're doing these trills. So I decided to do trills at first. So this is played by two, and then after that they are separating to do these notes. So they're blurring the notes. It's actually the same notes almost the same notes from what they had before. Now let's listen to only the woodwinds for this last version. Already the woodwinds by themselves, they sound really good. The woodwinds are really adding so much color in any orchestral setting. And when you use all of them like so, in their register coming in one at a time, this kind of effect from going to the low register to the highest register, it makes me realize that the orchestra has so much dimension. But yeah, it's really a little bit more orchestrated for this. But again, what's crazy is that it's all based from this simple chord that I just decided to do at first, and then you spread it across the orchestra, and doing it by steps is a really good way to make choices one by one and adjusting and refining as you go. And finally, for my percussions, I use the timpani, just this first note doing a roll, and then after that stopping for the rest. So just for the lowest register. After that, here I used a suspended cymbal up here, but this is a large gong. So I had this idea of like something being opening right at the beginning. large gongs or tam tams, and careful because some gongs are not so big and they don't have this effect that you might be looking for. They really give this like background effect. It's not like a bass drum that's so obvious, like, and the sound always come afterwards. In French we say à retardement, so it's like late. The sound is late, so you hit the gong and then it comes afterwards. So I really like this kind of effect to start off, and to especially when it's really starting low. After that, just pure brilliance with the glockenspiel, with this higher note and the triangle as well. Trying not to use too much of it, but it was just too tempting to pair it with the harp as well, pair it with the pizzicatos and the higher A right at the end for the glockenspiel and also the triangle here. So let's listen to this final version and see how this orchestral trill effect can make music that sounds so cool. So crazy how we can create music out of thin air. You don't need to learn about crazy music theory things to compose music. You just need a good knowledge of orchestration, and simple ideas can become fantastic pieces of music. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.